If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for
I am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
We can see that again in the Middle East today. So I call again for restraint and de-escalation at the border between Lebanon and Israel. Again, all parties to pull back from the brink. I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages, the return of the sausages, the return of the sausages. And that's the message I will take to the UN General Assembly when I travel there later today.
A return of the sausages? Mind you, fuck the hostages, they want the sausages. The hell? The hell kind of world we living in? Yeah, I heard that yesterday. I was like, what? How do you even... How do you even... I mean, yeah, they kind of rhyme, but you got to be thinking about sausages to say sausages in a serious speech like that. I'm just saying. See, Choosy, I knew it. I knew the book was coming. The Choosy Manifesto is here. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday. It is Morning Extra. I'm this guy again. Yeah, you saw it. And we got Choosy in the house. Max Sarjay up in Adamant. You don't drink, you don't smoke. What do? You don't drink, you don't smoke. What do you do? Certain innuendos follow. Must be something inside. Great Adamant tune from back in the day. Rick Solis in the house. Where's my coffee? Got to take the trash out. What day is it? Did he say so? Yeah, he did say sausages. He did say sausages. Prop, what's up? I'm glad that you took your poop already and are joining us. Chuck's in the house. Good to see you, brother. And Willie Bradshaw. Willie talking about going to he's getting his oil changed and enjoying breakfast at the Cracker Barrel. What? You're cheating? You're cheating on Denny's? How dare you? Yes, allegedly he's going to have a show tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We got Dee in the house too. She'll be doing her show tonight. Around the World, Dee and Friends. So be sure to check that out. Like I said, good morning. This is me, and once again another reminder about our buddy Chanda. Oops, that's not it. Sorry, we'll get to that in just a second. Let's see, where was it? Oh, okay. There I forgot to load it. Anyway, description, or the link is down below for Chanda, Masta, who's going through lung cancer right now. She's got a GoFundMe. If you'd like to donate to her GoFundMe, like I said, link is in the description below on all three platforms: YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. So yeah, let's get to it. The news of the day. We got Missouri, the show me state. as in show me executions. This is a particularly sad thing that happened here. Marcellus Williams executed in Missouri despite conviction doubts, right? So Williams, who was convicted of murder 21 years ago, has been executed in the Midwestern state of Missouri despite concerns raised over the integrity of the case. Wow, in Missouri, I'm shocked. The U.S. Supreme Court, the last body that could have overturned Williams' death sentence, declined to intervene in the case yesterday. 55-year-old was executed by lethal injection shortly after 6 p.m. local time at the prison in Bonne Terre, according to the Innocence Project, whose lawyer worked with Williams. His death came a day after both Missouri Governor Mike Parson and the state's highest court also rejected his last-ditch appeals to avoid execution. Williams was found guilty in the 1998 killing of Leisha Gale, a 42-year-old former newspaper reporter who was stabbed 43 times during what appeared to be a burglary gone wrong. He had maintained he was innocent. Wesley Bell, whose office handled the original prosecution, had sought to block the execution due to concerns about the original trial. Even for those who disagree on the death penalty, where there is a shadow of a doubt of any defendant's guilt, the irreversible punishment of execution should not be an option, Bell said in a statement before the execution. In court papers, Bell questioned the reliability of the two main trial witnesses, concluded that prosecutors improperly excluded black jurors on the basis of race in Missouri. Wow, there's a shock. And noted that new testing found no trace of Williams' DNA on the murder weapon. Williams was an African American. Subsequent tests also revealed that there was DNA on the knife from a prosecutor and an investigator who worked on the case and handled the weapon without gloves. The contamination of the knife led prosecutors and Williams' lawyers to an agreement in August to commute the sentence to life in prison. Gale's family also backed the deal, but Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey objected, and the state Supreme Court blocked it at his request. The state judge upheld Williams' murder conviction earlier this month, finding that the lack of evidence of the knife was not enough to establish his innocence. Because, he's a black guy in Missouri. The Missouri Supreme Court affirmed that decision on Monday. Governor Parson also turned down Williams' request for clemency the same day. No jury nor court, including at the trial, appellate, and Supreme Court levels, have ever found merit in Mr. Williams' innocence claims, he said in a statement. At the end of the day, his guilty verdict and sentence of capital punishment were upheld. Williams was among death row inmates in 5 states who were scheduled to be executed in the span of a week, an unusually high number amid a years-long decline in the use and support of the death penalty in the United States. The first was carried out on Friday in South Carolina. Texas was also slated to execute a prisoner on Tuesday evening. That would be last night. Travis Mullis, 38, was convicted of stamping his 3-month-old son. Oh, I guess that's stomping his 3-month-old son, Elijah Mullis, to death in 2008. The death penalty has been abolished in 23 U.S. states, while 6 others, Arizona, California, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee, have moratoriums in place. So, yeah. When you're talking about the death penalty, like the article says, it's if you murder somebody, you put them to death, and then you find out later that they're innocent, there is no oopsie sauce. Let's fix it, unless you know how to resurrect the dead. And I don't think anybody knows how to do that quite yet. Good morning, Gene. It is. The U.S. is such a violent culture and society. Global solidarity in the house, too. Good to see it. Over 337 million Americans, not all violent. That's true. That's true. Not all violent. Yeah, so... of course there's like people who are going to say, well, these, child murderers and like these fuckers. Okay, I understand, yes, why you would want to put somebody to death, but you better make damn sure that you got all the evidence. And even if the evidence is shaky, you can still put them in jail for life if that's the route you're going to go. But because if you kill them, that's it. They're not coming back. That's how shit works. Also, how shit works is we got more hurricanes coming too. I know that was a shitty segue, but we're still in the North American continent, and we got a Helene, emphasis on hell. She's down in the tropics right now, but she is heading our way. Let's get the latest.
Ohio Task Force 1 is on its way to Florida in preparation for Helene. The tropical storm is expected to become a major hurricane in the Gulf Coast before making landfall in Florida. Let's check in with Matt Wentz because, Matt, you've been tracking the latest on the storm.
Yeah, Danita, we just got the new update in over the last 5 minutes or so, and still talking a tropical storm status, but barely. This is expected to become a hurricane here with the next update in another 3 hours. Winds are at 65, gusts to 75. Movements northwest. It's being impacted right now by the Yucatan, by Cancun, that land helping to kind of slow that forward speed down a little bit and kind of break it up a little bit. There's some wind shear here as well. Once it gets out of the wind shear and into the open waters of the warm Gulf of Mexico, we're expecting rapid intensification. That would happen later today into the daytime tomorrow. Already seeing some rain up in the Keys from this. Tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings out. Look at the path of this as it curves towards the Big Bend in Florida, expected to make landfall as a Category 3, and then it heads up in our direction as we get in the latter half of the week. Rain bands already starting in Florida. In terms of wave height, take a look at this. Over the next 24-hour, wave height approaching 20 to 30 feet off the coast of Florida. That's in addition to storm surge. That water's going to rise some 10 to 15 feet regardless. And the wind impacts, I know we focus on the center, but look at this. Tampa, St. Pete, down to Fort Myers, all going to be in the impact in terms of wind with this system. And yeah, it comes up towards Ohio as well. So here's your future cast. Rain bands already ongoing across Florida. Look at the heavy rain way in advance of this across areas of Georgia. Center circulation expected to make that churn as it strengthens into likely a Category 3 tomorrow. And here's your landfall. We're talking tomorrow night, maybe around 10 in the Big Bend, just north of Cedar Key. All this rain heading up in our direction. In addition to some wind, we'll take you through that forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Danita.
No, you won't. Not on this show, pal. So, I do not know what the hell I'm doing today. Yeah. So, we keep eyes on these storms. You get late here in September, even through November, you're going to get these storms like this too. So we'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, another hurricane on the other side of Mexico has made landfall. Looks like Hurricane John. That's an original name. Hurricane John strikes Mexico's Pacific coast south of Acapulco. A big tourist area there. Hurricane John struck Mexico's southern Pacific coast with fierce winds and heavy rainfall after strengthening from tropical storm to major hurricane in a matter of hours. John's rapid intensification caught authorities off guard early Monday as they scrambled to update their guidance to residents and keep pace with the stronger storm. It made landfall as a Cat 3 hurricane with winds of 190 kilometers per hour or 120 miles per hour after rapidly intensifying on Monday. John hit land near the town of Punta Maldonado in the Mexican state of Guerrero in the south of the tourist hubs of Acapulco and Puerto Escondido before weakening inland. Forecasters also predict the storm may slow its forward movements as its winds weaken. Shortly before the hurricane hit, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said life-threatening storm surges and flash floods were already ravaging the Pacific coast near Osaka. I never can pronounce that name. Osaka. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, AMLO, and other authorities urged people to take shelter, seek higher ground, protect yourselves. Do not forget that life is the most important thing. Material things can be replaced. We are here. AMLO wrote on the social media platform, The Tweeters. Yeah, so storms all around the Gulf down there, and another one coming. So Florida, watch out! It's gonna hit in your neck of the woods where one hit about a few weeks ago too. So that's why I never want to live in Florida. One of the reasons why I shouldn't live in Florida is there's too many fucking hurricanes down there, and it's the heat and the humidity down there during the summer is just outrageous. And of course, that just makes everybody crazy and makes them do insane things. Staying on this side of the globe, we have tension in Bolivia as Evo Morales issues a 24-hour ultimatum to the Arce government. Anti-government protesters have clashed with supporters of President Luis Arce in Bolivia's capital, La Paz, as fears grow of further unrest in the Andean nation, mired in an economic crisis ahead of next year's presidential election. Riot police and supporters of Arce gathered to defend the government on Monday evening in the Plaza Mario, the central square in La Paz where the main presidential and legislative offices are located, raising fears of a major confrontation. Tensions rose as former President Evo Morales spoke to a large crowd and demanded that the government make cabinet changes within 24 hours or face the wrath of thousands of protesters who he has led in a week-long march. Morales declared that Bolivians have had enough of betrayal and, above all, enough of corruption, protection of drug trafficking, and economic mismanagement. Bolivia's foreign ministry on Tuesday rejected the ultimatum by Morales, saying in a statement that the ex-president had threatened the country's democratic order. For the last 2 days, acrid smoke from burning tires and thick clouds of tear gas have filled the streets of El Alto, a sprawling city on a plateau above the capital. All right, so Bolivia having a good time with that. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, who are keeping an eye on things in Lebanon, especially with the pagers, that he's not taking any chances there. So Maduro issues Christmas gift warning. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has warned members of his government against accepting electronic devices as Christmas presents. Maduro's comments at a meeting on Venezuelan culture in Caracas Friday followed a series of deadly explosions involving communications equipment in Lebanon last week. Do not accept electronic gifts. Be careful with telephones, cell phones. Be careful, everyone, the president said during a speech broadcast on national television. You've seen what happened in Lebanon. Everyone should be on alert, he added. And this is coming from a guy who survived a coup attempt and basically has like all the Western countries against him right now. So, he's like not taking any chances. Artisanal handcrafts, books, and traditional Venezuelan products like coffee and rum could be given instead, Maduro suggested. Rum. He's in cahoots with the rum, with Big Rum. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. The mass detonations of pagers and walkie-talkies in Lebanon last week left at least 37 people dead and some 3,000 injured. Israeli intelligence is widely suspected of having orchestrated the attacks, which targeted the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah. The U.S., along with the EU and several other countries, have backed opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez in refusing to recognize Maduro's victory. So, he's dealing with that as well. And I'm kind of dealing with the little runny nose thing. I know TMI, but if I'm a little bit out of it this morning, don't tase me, bro. I'm working on it. It's not cocaine. I promise you, if I could afford cocaine, I still wouldn't get it. But that's a story for another day. And it's not just the pagers and stuff that Israel is terrifying people with over there. Now it's barcodes. So Hezbollah warns Lebanese public not to scan very dangerous Israel barcodes amid attacks, right? We're not going to show the barcode because I couldn't find the barcode. I don't think they displayed it. So Hezbollah warned the Lebanese public yesterday against scanning QR codes attached to leaflets dropped by Israeli warplanes in various areas across Lebanon. Anadolu agency reports in a statement, Hezbollah's media department said Israeli leaflets were dropped in the Bekaa Valley. And they said, please do not open or share the QR codes. They should be disposed of immediately as they are very dangerous. This code can extract all the information on your devices and poses a threat to your safety. We urge everyone to exercise caution, the statement said. At least 558 people have been killed, including 50 children, 95 women, and 1,835 others injured in the Israeli attacks in Lebanon. since Monday last week, according to Lebanese Health Minister Firas Abiad. The majority of the victims in the Israeli attack since Monday morning are defenseless civilians in their homes. This refutes the enemy's criticism of targeting fighters, the minister stressed. Hezbollah and Israel have been engaged in cross-border warfare since the start of the Israeli war on Gaza, which has killed over 41,000 people, mostly women and children, following that cross-border attack on October 7th last year. The international community has warned against the strikes on Lebanon as they raise the specter of spreading the Gaza conflict regionally. But, who gives a fuck about that, right? They're trying to get back they're trying to get back the sausages. Yeah, they're trying to, that's their claim. Even though when they try to get back the hostages, they end up killing half of them, because that's how Israel rolls. Hezbollah taking more action against Israel. They claim they attempted a ballistic missile attack on the Mossad headquarters. Probably heard about this. Lebanon's Hezbollah movement has said its fighters fired a ballistic missile targeting the Mossad intelligence agency headquarters near Tel Aviv earlier today. Israel's military said its air defense systems had intercepted the rocket as it was detected crossing from Lebanon, triggering warning sirens in Tel Aviv and other areas of central Israel. Hezbollah said the intended target was the intelligence agency's headquarters, which it said was responsible for last week's pager and radio device attacks and the assassinations of senior Hezbollah leaders. The Islamic resistance launched a Qadr-1 ballistic missile at 6:30 a.m. local time on Wednesday, targeting the Mossad headquarters in the outskirts of Tel Aviv. The statement read, the headquarters are responsible for the assassination of leaders and the explosion of pagers and wireless devices. An Israeli military spokesperson said the missile was bound for civilian areas in Tel Aviv. The Mossad headquarters is not in that area, said spokesman Nadav Shoshani. He added that there were no casualties as a result of the attack. A number of important Israeli military sites are embedded in civilian areas, such as Israel's Defense Ministry, which has its headquarters in central Tel Aviv. According to the Israeli military, the attempted missile strike Wednesday was the first time a missile launched from Lebanon had reached central Israel, and that's the important part there. Their reach is starting to get pretty close. It also reported that Hezbollah had fired rockets targeting the occupied Golan Heights and near Mount Carmel in northern Israel, adding that all of them were intercepted. The launch comes amid Israel's wide-scale bombing of southern and eastern Lebanon, which began last week and so far has killed over 550 people and forced tens of thousands to flee. And we told you about the Houthis too, and their long-range missiles that they have. So, the fucking around is going on by Israel, but the finding out, it looks like it's going to be coming pretty soon. So of course, Israel has to respond. Israel launches a strike in Beirut for the third time within a week. Israel launched an airstrike in the Lebanese capital Beirut yesterday as it continues heavy airstrikes in Lebanon. Following a dramatic escalation on Monday, Israel said the Beirut strike, which targeted the city's southern suburbs, killed Ibrahim Kubaisi, a senior Hezbollah commander. Hezbollah later confirmed that Kubaisi was dead. Lebanon's health ministry said that at least 6 people were killed and 15 were wounded in the attack, which marked the third time Israel bombed Beirut within 1 week. Last Friday, an Israeli strike killed 55 people in the Lebanese capital, including a senior Hezbollah commander, and at least 3 children and 7 women. Monday, Israel targeted Beirut as it launched its heaviest bombardment of southern and eastern Israel. Israel claimed the Monday strike on Beirut killed Ali Karaki, the head of Hezbollah's southern command, but Hezbollah denied the claim and said he was moved to a safe area. So the fighting continues there. Looks like it's intensifying. And, of course, we'll keep an eye on it to see where it goes. Hopefully cooler heads prevail, but, I don't think there's any cool heads anymore at this point. Meanwhile, soulless doll that haunts your dreams, Anthony Blinken, is facing some pressure. This is from Common Dreams and Jake Johnson. Nice haircut. See, your pal there, your other pal. And you should take a lesson there. Blinken faces call to resign over lie that Israel is not blocking Gaza aid. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken faced calls to resign yesterday following a ProPublica report detailing how he contradicted the findings of his own department's experts in order to maintain the flow of American weaponry to Israel, which has repeatedly used the arms to commit war crimes in the Gaza Strip. Blinken and the Biden administration ignored Israel's blocking of humanitarian aid to the suffering people of Gaza, which is a violation of American law, and lied about it to Congress, said Nahad Awad, National Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. When a senior American official lies to Congress in the middle of genocide so that the government can keep funding that genocide, he is deliberately flouting the law and prolonging the suffering of millions of innocent people who desperately need our government to stop funding their slaughter. He must resign, Awad added, and the Biden administration must be held accountable for its violation of the law and its complicity in the Israeli genocide in Gaza. ProPublica's story provides a thorough account backed by internal communications and other documents of how the Blinken-led State Department delivered a report to Congress that was at odds with the conclusions of experts within the department as well as those of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. The latter agency told Blinken directly in an April memo that Israel was deliberately impeding shipments of U.S. humanitarian assistance, a finding consistent with assessments from the UN and outside groups. Under U.S. law, the federal government cannot provide arms or other military equipment to countries obstructing American humanitarian aid. But in a May report to Congress, the State Department concluded that the Israeli government was not prohibiting or otherwise restricting the transport or delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance within the meaning of Section 6201 of the Foreign Assistance Act. One State Department official, Stacey Gilbert, resigned over the final report to Congress, saying in a statement following her departure that there is abundant evidence showing Israel is responsible for blocking aid and that to deny this is absurd and shameful. The aid obstructions are ongoing, according to an analysis released last week. This is what we reported on last week. By a coalition of human rights organizations, Israel's siege is currently blocking over 80% of food aid from reaching Gaza as the enclave faces famine. Awad of CARE said Tuesday that Blinken may have committed a crime with his lies. The American people deserve honest and upright leaders to represent their values and protect their interests, said Awad. Yeah, good luck with that, Awad. You're probably not going to find it with that crew. Those dead-eyed motherfuckers just love killing kids and women and innocent people. All for the sake of empire. Good morning, Bella. Good to see you. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. Osama, number 5, over on the Rockfin. Good to see you. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you as well. Well, I don't know if he's going to resign or get fired or probably none of that shit. But the U.S. is delaying aid to Israel for some strange reason. U.S. delaying Israeli requests to replenish munitions and missile interceptors. So the Biden administration may be slow rolling a new Israeli request to refill its arms and munition stockpiles, raising some questions among U.S. officials whether or not it's trying to apply pressure on Israel to stop a full-scale offensive on Lebanon. Middle East Eye can reveal. That's where this reports from. Israel submitted an extensive 3-page request last week for additional munitions and armaments to the Biden administration. A senior U.S. official and former U.S. official told Middle East Eye. Israel did not request new types of weapons, but is looking to replenish stockpiles from its U.S. ally, which have been depleted as fighting with Hezbollah escalates. The current and former U.S. officials said one weapon system that Israel is asking the U.S. to refill are interceptors for the Arrow missile defense system, the current and former U.S. officials said. Analysts and former U.S. officials say it would be used if Israel came under attack from long-range missiles fired by Iran, Hezbollah, or the Houthis in Yemen. Last week's request includes more U.S. military aid and foreign military sales, the latter of which Israel buys with its sovereign funds, basically our money. Then Bel Talablu, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, told Middle East Eye it is not surprising that the Biden administration would seek to put new roadblocks on weapons transfers, which is consistent with other signs from the Biden administration that it is prioritizing de-escalation over deterrence. I know one way that you could actually stop it instead of deterring it is stop sending the weapons, period. Don't delay it. Just stop it. Delaying for 30 minutes, Gene, exactly. You're like, oh, here you go. Well, you know we can't deny you. You keep on with your genocide, and we'll keep pretending like we give a shit about it over here. So Iran is a little more patient than some of the characters in the Middle East that's fighting Israel are comfortable with. So Iran declines Lebanese Hezbollah's call to strike Israel, according to a report. Lebanon's Tehran-backed Hezbollah has recently urged Iran to launch an attack on Israel as the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel sharply escalates. But Iran has so far refrained from taking direct action, according to a report by U.S. news site Axios on Tuesday. Citing two Israeli officials, Axios reported that Iranian officials told Hezbollah that the timing isn't right for an Iranian assault on Israel, given that the Iranian president Masoud Pezeshkian is currently in New York attending the UN General Assembly. Monday, Israel launched devastating strikes that we mentioned here, and of course on Tuesday, those extensive new strikes, including an attack on the southern suburbs of Beirut that took out one of Hezbollah's rocket forces commanders. So they want Iran to step up, but Iran is waiting. I don't know what they're waiting on. If the Houthis have long-range missiles and now Hezbollah does too, maybe they're waiting to see if they can, I don't know, get through or something. Why am I so short? I don't mean to be short. Sorry about that. I'm no Middle East expert, obviously, but if they want to stop this genocide, they're gonna have to do something. So we'll see what happens. So all of this has put Iran in a bit of a pickle here. This is from Arab News. So as world leaders gather in New York for the UN General Assembly, global attention is glued to the latest escalation taking place in the Middle East between Israel and Hezbollah, which has brought the region yet another step closer to all-out war. The Israeli strikes came this week, less than a week after coordinated attacks last week. There are now fears of a looming Israeli ground offensive into southern Lebanon. Although a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah is a real possibility, both parties still prefer a diplomatic solution, which I don't think that's going to happen. But Helene Gadara, the Friedman Senior Fellow in the Washington Institute's Linda and Tony Rubin program on Arab politics, wrote in Foreign Policy this week, Israel is trying to keep its attacks targeted, and Hezbollah is trying hard not to provoke Israel or be forced to use and waste its most valuable military assets, namely precision missiles, which Iran regards as an insurance policy. Indeed, much of what happens next hinges on how Hezbollah's key backer, Iran, chooses to respond. Like now, right now, they're waiting and seeing. Pezeshkian denounced the UN's inaction against Israel, describing it as senseless and incomprehensible amid surging tensions across the Middle East. In my meeting with the Secretary General of the UN, I said the UN inaction against the crimes of the occupying regime is senseless and incomprehensible, he said in a post on the tweeters. I expressed my deep concern about the spread of the conflict in the entire Middle East, he added. He told CNN that Iran's ally Hezbollah cannot stand alone against a country that is being defended and supported and supplied by Western countries, by European countries, and the U.S. He called on the international community to not allow Lebanon to become another Gaza in response to a question on whether Iran would use its influence with Hezbollah to urge restraint. Iran understands better than any other nation, perhaps, the meaning of the word restraint, despite intense speculation about a direct military conflict between Iran and Israel following the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in July. There remains little sign that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps intends to exact revenge for the humiliation. Now that with the situation in Lebanon rapidly escalating, the IRGC may have little option but to come to the aid of its Hezbollah allies, if only to protect a regional asset that has long been seen as its insurance policy against a preemptive Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear program. Pezeshkian doesn't really speak for the IRGC or the hard side of Iranian power, Paul Salem, vice president for international engagement at the Middle East Institute, told Bloomberg TV yesterday. It's often the case in Iran that they send soft messages in one area and hard messages in another, but it is also true that Iran does not want Hezbollah to go into an all-out war with Israel. He wants to preserve Hezbollah as a long-term deterrent for Iran itself, not for Hamas or anything related to the Palestinian issue. I think it's trying to calm the situation, de-escalate the situation. I doubt very much that they would join any escalation of fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. I think they will keep their powder dry and to avoid being dragged into it, although they would certainly try to resupply and support Hezbollah. The IRGC's avoidance of a direct conflict with Israel appears to be rooted in a complex web of strategic, military, and political considerations. While Iran faces pressure to respond to Israeli provocations, the risks of escalation, the deterrent power of the U.S. military, internal political and economic challenges, and the benefits of proxy warfare have all likely contributed to Tehran's cautious approach. As long as these dynamics remain in place, Iran is likely to continue relying on its proxies and asymmetric warfare rather than risking an all-out war with Israel. So in other words, yeah, Hezbollah, you keep doing what you're doing, but don't do too much because, we're only going to just, supply you with weapons, but we're not going to get in on it. And the U.S. has pretty much said the same thing to Israel, right? They said, we'll give you weapons and stuff. We're not sending troops on the ground for you. In any event, though, Israel would be in a real shit pickle economically. So the war with Hezbollah would be a nightmare scenario for Israeli economy. In a recent analysis, The Economist highlighted that a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah represents a nightmare scenario for the former's economy, with a number of investors already preparing for a war that would engulf Israel. According to the report, such a war would severely damage Israeli economic growth, possibly even more than the impact of the Palestinian resistance October 7th operation. A wartime economy is precarious, requiring a government to finance its military, usually through deficit spending, while maintaining enough economic strength to manage post-war debts, the report added. However, the most alarming scenario today facing the occupation entity is that the war would extend into its key commercial centers, including Tel Aviv. Even a more limited military escalation in the northern regions could push the Israeli economy to the brink, it warned. Military expenditures are expected to rise significantly, placing further strain on the entity's financial resources. Adding to these challenges, Israeli banks are facing a substantial outflow of capital as investors seek to move their funds abroad. The three largest banks in Israel have reported a sharp increase in the number of clients requesting to transfer their savings abroad. This development has heightened concerns among the entity's economic policymakers, who are now more worried than they were at the outset of the war, right? And we talked about this a few weeks ago about how Israel's economy was already going tits up, right? But particularly their tourism industry, right? And, because who wants to go to a war zone? I don't know. I'm not one of those people who would want to go to a war zone. So, and there've already been flights canceled. In one report too, I think the UK has told their people to come home from Palestine. I mean, from Lebanon, I should say, because of the escalation that's going on there. It's a firecracker. It's a big one that's about to, it's already popping off, but the big stuff is yet to come. And we mentioned the UN General Assembly there in New York, stroking each other off. The war on Gaza dominates speeches on day one. And there's President Biden shitting his pants there. Good thing he's got like a nice thing to keep the people from seeing that. You can't stop the smell, but at least you can stop the sights. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres kicked off the 79th the 79th United Nations General Assembly yesterday at the UN headquarters in New York with a warning about how a decaying rules-based order has handed several countries a get-out-of-jail-free card, referring to the wars in Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine. Delicious vodka. They can trample international law. They can violate the UN Charter, Gutierrez said during the general debate at the UN. They can invade another country, lay waste to whole societies, or utterly disregard the welfare of their own people, and nothing will happen. The level of impunity in the world is politically indefensible and morally intolerable. He directly addressed Israel's war in Gaza and the killing of Palestinian civilians. Nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The speed and scale of the killing and destruction in Gaza are unlike anything I have seen in my years as Secretary General, Gutierrez said, which was greeted with a wide round of applause. The Secretary General went on to pay tribute to the 200 UN staff killed in Gaza and honored the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, for Palestinian refugees in the Near East, which was again met with applause. He went on to condemn Israel's expansion of illegal settlements and land grabs and called for the unconditional release of hostages in Gaza, an immediate ceasefire, and an irreversible two-state solution. He said that the status quo, with no dignity for the Palestinian people, was an impossibility. In nearly every leader's address on Tuesday, the devastation of Israel's war on Gaza and calls for an immediate ceasefire and a two-state solution featured heavily. And that's ongoing. I'm not quite sure how many days that goes on for. But I'll talk, no action. But at least they're talking about it at the UN, and they're consistently talking about it. But like we said, it's all talk. Meanwhile, in the Czech Republic, where we constantly joke that you cannot use cash or credit cards, they're having a time with their elections there. This is from Politico. Czech government in disarray after poor election results. This guy seems happy, though. The five-party ruling coalition in the Czech Republic is getting wobblier by the day, following the results of regional elections over the weekend in which former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš scored a landslide victory. Prague finds itself in a pickle. Babiš and his ANO party, Action of Dissatisfied Citizen. Hey, wait a minute. Doesn't spell ANO. Won 10 out of the country's 13 regions on 35% of the vote, comprising 292 seats out of the 685 available, and up sharply from ANO's 21% in the last regional elections in 2020. Meanwhile, the far-right SPD, Freedom and Direct Democracy, see that they don't match. The word letters don't match. And Communist Party Stasilo, enough, also performed better than expected, finishing in a tie for fifth on 32 seats each. That's bad news for the current government ahead of next year's parliamentary elections. Following the outcome, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala proposed the dismissal of Regional Development and Digitization Minister Ivan Bartos on Tuesday, exposing deep instability in the ruling coalition and buoying the opposition. Bartos on Sunday resigned as chairman of the Pirate Party. Yar, matey. That's the only reason I wanted to do this story, so I can tell you about the Pirate Party. A member of the ruling coalition after it lost almost all the seats it had contested in the regional elections. The party had been badly hurt by a public outcry earlier this year following its failed digitization of the issuance of building permits but the way Bartos' departure was handled caused additional damage to the weakened coalition. Fiala met with Bartos in person yesterday, but only told him of his decision to fire him in a phone call later that day. That's the way to do it. At least it wasn't an email. At least they called the dude. Unaware of what was coming, the outgoing pirate party, head at first said no changes in government would follow, only to condemn Fiala's decision later as betrayal. Prime Minister refuted the charge in a post on the tweeters and asked the pirates to propose a new candidate for the ministry post. The pirate party leadership soon took up the cudgel, however. We were kicked out of the government by ODS, Fiala's ruling party, today, and it's out of the question that we would come back to beg, said Jacob Mikulek, head of the party's parliamentary caucus. The pirate party is reportedly now considering leaving the coalition, setting sail for other waters. Because they're pirates, which would mean the departure of Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky and Legislation Minister Michael Salomon following the ouster of Bartos. It would also cut the cabinet strength in the parliament to a slim majority. Czech President Petr Pavel, whose approval is needed for cabinet dismissal, said he would meet with all parties on Monday. What's important to me and the citizens that any change, if it occurs, does not affect the stability of the government, Pavel said, adding that the recent spat threatens to bring down the government, which is not in anyone's interests. Pirate party. Yar, matey. I'll be whipping you with me cat o' nine tails. Yar. There it is, Bella. There you throw it up to Jolly Roger. I'll be hanging you from the highest yard arm, matey. Arg. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't give a fuck about the Czech Republic, but that pirate party, delicious. We often look to Russia as like being the cooler head in the room when it comes to wars and stuff like that. But they still have their negatives too. So Russia, the Russian parliament backs a ban on adoptions from countries that allow gender changes. So the Russian parliament earlier today gave its initial backing to legislation that would ban nationals from countries that allow people to change their gender from adopting Russian children, a move it said was essential to uphold, quote, traditional values. This is the same country that puts you in jail for smoking weed, too. So, Russia, like I say, stay frosty, be skeptical of all these people. Russia itself last year introduced a ban on people legally or medically changing their gender, part of a widening crackdown on LGBT rights. The adoption legislation, which had already been conceptually approved by the government on Wednesday, won the backing of the State Duma, the lower house of parliament, in the first of three readings. The law's authors cast it as a measure aimed at protecting adopted Russian children from what they describe as potentially dangerous conditions in countries that belong to the NATO military alliance, which backs Ukraine in the war against Russia. This decision is aimed at protecting childhood and traditional values. Vyacheslav Volodin, chairman of the Duma and a close ally of Putin, said after it had been voted on, it is necessary to protect our children from the dangers they may face when they are adopted or fostered by citizens of foreign countries where gender reassignment is allowed. And I don't have a dog in the hunt when it comes to that topic. I really don't talk about gender assignments and gender issues. My take on that is if you're an adult person and you're making changes for yourself, that's your business. It's none of my business. When you're dealing with children, though, that's a different story. And like I said, I mean, it's not a monolith. Every situation is different and should be treated as such. So that's why I don't talk about it too much. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. And you don't come here for opinions anyway. You come here for the news. Just like Switzerland's suicide booth. You want to hear about that, don't you? Switzerland opens probe into use of a suicide booth. That's it right there. Fresh out of Futurama. Looks nice. I mean, if you're going to go, I mean, it looks pretty comfortable. It kind of looks like a ride at the county fair, if you ask me. It's a one-way trip. Swiss police have launched an investigation after a woman died in a suicide pod. Several people have been taken into custody and face criminal charges. The authorities announced on Tuesday the action came after police learned that the Sarko suicide capsule had been used in a forest area the previous day. They just took it out in the woods and off somebody. That's wild. Those detained are suspected of inducement and aiding and abetting suicide, regional police said in a statement. The last resort, an assisted dying group, told AFP news agency that the person who died in the booth was a 64-year-old woman from the United States. She has not been named. Swiss authorities secured the capsule and took the body of the deceased for an autopsy, according to police. No going back. The controversial Sarko suicide capsule was developed by the Netherlands-based assisted suicide group Exit International. These names. First unveiled in 2019, the portable human-sized sealed pod allows those wishing to die to press a button. The oxygen inside it is then replaced with nitrogen, causing death by hypoxia. No medical supervision is needed. Obviously, unless you want to make sure that the person's dead. Once the button is pressed, the amount of oxygen in the air plummets from 21% to 0.05% in less than 30 seconds, according to Exit International's director, Philip Nitschke. Within 2 breaths of air of that low level of oxygen, they will start to feel disoriented. I don't like this word disorientated. That sounds like a made-up word. It's disoriented. All right? Don't be making up words. That's like saying loose when somebody loses an election. Don't say that shit. Uncoordinated and slightly euphoric before losing consciousness. They got losing right. Said the former physician from Australia who invented the capsule. They will then stay in that state of unconsciousness for about 5 minutes before death will take place, he added. As for someone changing their mind at the very last minute, Nitschke said, once you press that button, there's no way of going back. He's like, you're iced, baby. The capsules raised a host of legal and ethical questions in Switzerland. Act of euthanasia is illegal in the country, but assisted dying has been allowed for decades as long as the person takes their life with no external assistance, and those who help the person die do not do so for any self-serving motive, according to a government website. Switzerland's interior minister has said that the Sarko pod does not comply with Swiss law. Firstly, it does not meet the requirements of product safety law. Yeah, it's very unsafe. It's extremely unsafe, and therefore cannot be placed on the market. Secondly, the corresponding use of nitrogen is not compatible with the purpose article of the Chemicals Act, Elizabeth Baumschneider said in a parliamentary session on Monday. In July, Swiss newspaper Blick reported that Peter Stitcher, a state prosecutor in Schaffhausen, wrote to Exit International's lawyers saying any operator of the suicide capsule could face criminal proceedings if it was used there. Any conviction could trigger a sentence of up to 5 years in prison and, ironically, a death sentence. No, I just added that last part. That's not right. Wow. It is. It's just like from Futurama. Was it the suicide booth? Didn't they have that in what was that? Oh God. I'm pretty sure it came from Futurama. I don't think they got the idea from Futurama, but you know. Meanwhile, the eggs in Ukraine are so good the EU is banning them. EU state calls for ban on Ukrainian eggs. Bulgaria says the influx of cheap produce has destabilized the domestic market. Cheap eggs, huh? How about destabilizing this market? Come send those eggs over here, man. $4 a fucking dozen. Fuck that. Bulgaria has called on the European Commission to ban chicken eggs from Ukraine, claiming domestic producers are suffering from unfair competition due to the glut of cheap imports. The proposal was made by Bulgarian Agricultural Minister Georgi Tahov in a meeting of the EU Agriculture and Fisheries Council in Brussels on Monday, according to the ministry. Tahov said domestic production in Bulgaria has been severely hit by the influx of eggs from Ukraine, which are up to 30% cheaper than those on the local market. The ones on the local market are made out of gold, by the way, and it turns out they're laid by geese, not chicken. See, it's a golden egg. Over 26 100 tons of eggs were exported by Ukraine to Bulgaria in the first half of 2024, 5 times more than in the first 6 months of last year, official data has shown. This puts serious pressure on prices on the domestic market and has caused a wave of bankruptcies among Bulgarian poultry farms. Tahav noted, "We firmly support the people of Ukraine, but this should in no way cause bankruptcies and violate the rights of our farmers," the minister said. Tahav said that if Bulgaria's concerns are not addressed, the EU member state is ready to consider protective measures to limit trade with Ukraine. Earlier this year, the European Parliament extended the suspension of all tariffs and quotas on Ukrainian agricultural imports into the EU until June of next year. The free trade scheme incorporates an emergency break for poultry, eggs, and sugar, meaning that tariffs could be reimposed if inflows exceed the average levels of 2022 and 2023. In 2022, the EU suspended tariffs and quotas for Ukrainian agricultural produce to enable grain and other farm products from Ukraine to be shipped to global markets. However, a massive influx of cheap ag imports from the embattled nation has flooded Eastern European countries. Grain imports from Ukraine were at the core of farmer protests that swept the EU earlier this year. So he said, "We want any more of your fucking eggs. You're killing our business over here." But you know, it's all part of the global oligarchy, right? It's all part of it. And this is from the No Shit Sherlock files, but I figured we get a twofer from Jake Johnson here. Common Dreams. Global oligarchy reigns as top 1% controls more wealth than bottom 95% of humanity. A report published Monday by the humanitarian group Oxfam warns that decades of intensifying inequality have left the world in the grip of a global oligarchy under which the richest sliver of humanity owns more wealth than nearly everyone else combined. A state of affairs that undermines democratic institutions and international cooperation on climate, pandemics, and other crises. Oxfam's analysis of data from the investment banking giant UBS found that the fortune controlled by the top 1% is now larger than the collective wealth of the bottom 95%. Such inequality pervades the global economy, Oxfam noted, with a small number of corporations dominating key sectors. Nearly half of the global seed market, for example, is controlled by just 2 corporations, Bayer and Corteva. At the same time, just 3 U.S.-based financial behemoths, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, oversee nearly 20% of the world's investable assets, around $20 trillion. What's more, such massive corporations are increasingly run by billionaires. According to Oxfam, a billionaire either heads or is the top shareholder of more than a third of the world's leading 50 corporations. While we often hear about great power rivalries undermining multilateralism, it is clear that extreme inequality is playing a massive role, Oxfam Executive Director Amitabh Behar said in a statement. In recent years, the ultra-wealthy and powerful corporations have used their vast influence to undermine efforts to solve major global problems such as tackling tax dodging, making COVID-19 vaccines available to the world, and canceling the albatross of sovereign debt. Oxfam released its new report titled Multilateralism in an Era of Global Oligarchy ahead of the UN annual high-level general debate, whose 2024 theme is Leaving No One Behind, Acting Together for the Advancement of Peace, Sustainable Development, and Human Dignity for present and future generations. They could have cleaned up that theme a little bit. That's a little clunky. The extreme concentration of global wealth at the very top directly undercuts such objectives, Oxfam argues in its new report, with the ultra-rich using the wealth they've accumulated to influence policy decisions that fuel destructive inequalities. The ultra-rich, let me emphasize that, the ultra-rich using the wealth they've accumulated to influence policy decisions that fuel destructive inequalities. So it's not so much about getting the most money. It's about getting the power there. My little friend trying to sneak up there. What are you doing? Extreme inequality is consequently both a cause and effect of a movement towards global oligarchy, broadly defined here as the ability of the ultra-wealthy to shape political decision-making in ways that increase their wealth. Yeah, that's the thing. More power means more money, which means more power, which means more money. Democracies are afflicted as the ultra-rich, often through the powerful corporate interests that act on their behalf, can tilt policymaking in their favor at the expense of the majority. Nor is the movement toward oligarchy confined by national borders. It is global, impacting political decision-making within countries and at the international level. Behar said that the shadow of global oligarchy hangs over this year's UN General Assembly. The iconic UN podium is increasingly feeling diminished in a world in which billionaires are calling the shots, Behar added. Yeah, pretty soon the UN is just going to be a board meeting, and all the billionaires are just going to show up. Choosy, you said you weren't writing a book today. I knew that was bullshit. Choosy, he said, I'm not writing a book today. He wrote a fucking novel. So the U.S. is planning to prohibit key Chinese software and hardware in connected vehicles. So these electric vehicles, they all need parts and components, and a lot of it comes from China. The United States Department of Commerce has proposed prohibiting key Chinese software and hardware in connected vehicles on American roads due to national security concerns, a move that would, in effect, bar Chinese cars and trucks from the U.S. market. The planned regulation proposed on Monday would also force American and other major automakers in years ahead to remove key Chinese software and hardware from vehicles in the U.S. President Joe Biden's administration has raised concerns about data collection on U.S. drivers and infrastructure by connected Chinese vehicles and potential foreign manipulation of vehicles connected to the internet and navigation systems. In February, the White House ordered an investigation. And he failed to mention, too, that their own fucking government, too, the United States, can use that shit as well. And it has been for quite some time. The proposed prohibitions would prevent testing of self-driving cars on U.S. roads by Chinese automakers, extend to vehicle software and hardware produced by Russia, and could be extended to other U.S. adversaries. The proposal would make software prohibitions effective in the year 2027 model year. The hardware ban would take effect in the 2030 model year or January 2029. Commerce Department is giving the public 30 days to comment on the proposal and hopes to finalize it by January 20th. The rules would cover all on-road vehicles but exclude agricultural or mining vehicles not used on public roads, as well as drones and trains. So, yeah. If you're trying to get that Chinese car, you better do it quick before shit happens. Speaking of shit happens, I'm always talking about let's shut it down, right? Let's you ain't gonna vote your way out of this shit. What's up, Miguel? Good to see you. Choosy be like Dear Diary, you'll never forget what happened on the show this morning. So I was talking about shutting it down, right? And there's things are happening. And when I talk about shutting it down, I talk about a few areas, right? One of them is transportation, which includes planes, trains, automobiles, and boats, right? So there's a looming strike happening, or it's going to be coming. So this, according to Reuters, shippers scramble for workarounds ahead of looming U.S. East Coast port strike. That's going to be huge. U.S. companies that rely on East and Gulf Coast seaports have been importing early, shifting goods to the West Coast, and even putting cargo on pricey flights to hedge against a threatened October 1st strike that could jam supply chains and reignite inflation ahead of the U.S. presidential election. Or just another excuse to jack up the prices. This is just another headache after everything else we've been dealing with, said Kenneth Sanchez, CEO Chesapeake Specialty Products, which sends goods like metallic abrasives and foundry sand additives used to make engine blocks and transmissions to customers around the world. His main port is in Baltimore, one of the 36 covered by an expiring contract between the International Longshoremen's Association, the ILA, union representing 45,000 port workers, and the United States Maritime Alliance employer group, whose renewal talks are at an impasse over pay. The threatened walkout would come just 5 weeks before a presidential election between Cacklesaurus Kamala Harris and human dumpster fire Donald Trump, as likely to turn on pocketbook issues. A prolonged strike alongside an ongoing strike by 30,000 machinists at Boeing has already started to ripple through the aircraft maker's supplier network, could put a dent in the U.S. job market next month at a critical moment. Economists at Oxford Economics last week estimated the two labor actions could reduce payrolls growth by 100,000 jobs if they stretch into mid-October. For Sanchez, it would be the second big supply chain setback after a bridge collapse cut off most access to the Baltimore port from late March through mid-June. Things were just starting to get back to normal. Now he is working on a plan to put shipments on trains to West Coast ports should the ILA's members go on a prolonged strike at ports that stretch from Maine to Texas and handle about half of U.S. ocean trade. German chainsaw manufacturer Stihl said it is also developing contingency plans to keep exports flowing from its factory near the port of Virginia, but didn't elaborate. Stihl's U.S. plant ships products to over 80 countries. Retailers, manufacturers, and other importers, meanwhile, have been rushing in apparel, home goods, machine parts, and other items ahead of the strike deadline to avoid having cargo stuck. That sent U.S. imports to multi-year highs in July and August, exacerbating a shipping price increase tied to rerouting vessels around Africa to avoid rebel attacks on ships near the key Suez Canal trade shortcut, a.k.a. the Houthis. Ronnie Robinson, Chief Supply Chain Officer at DSW parent company Designer Brands, normally routes about 20% of the company's shoe imports through the East Coast. He shifted about half of those goods to the West, and he paid 10 times more than a typical ocean transit to fly in a small shipment of leather boots and dress boots from Brazil. So people are paying whatever they can to make sure they're in front of the queue, said Robinson, who added his company cannot risk late deliveries to clients like Macy's, Nordstrom, and Dillard's department stores. Still, Robinson has 10,000 to 20,000 units in transit via East Coast bound ships that we're worried about. So, the ILA striking, or potential strike, or they probably will strike. And that is, you're going to see more prices go up. And they're going to blame these assholes. They're going to blame these people who are striking. They're not assholes. They're the ones trying to get a better wage and whatnot. But even just the thought of a strike puts the fear into capitalism. So just keep that in mind when you're voting, when you think the voting's going to work. Steve, what's up? Good to see you. Good morning to you. So we mentioned Boeing earlier. Boeing's best and final offer rejected by union as strike drags on. Boeing made a best and final... What is this? Okay. It made a best and final offer to tens of thousands of striking International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAM, for a renewed contract. However, IAM rejected the proposal, stating it fell short of members' demands. According to Boeing's letter to IAM, the new contract would bump general pay by 30% over 4 years, reinstate the performance bonus, enhance retirement benefits, and double the ratification bonus to $6,000. Boeing stated that all other terms of the tentative agreement remain the same, and the new offer is contingent on ratification by the end of the week. The new offer already appears dead in the water after IAM District 751 said it would not hold a new vote on it. This is also the second time the union has rejected an offer, the first being a 25% pay increase earlier this month. Logistically, we don't have the ability to set up a vote for 33,000 people in a few days like that anyway, plus it missed the mark on many of the things our members said were important to them, said IAM District 751 President John Holden. He is also the lead negotiator on the Boeing contract. Holden told Reuters in an interview that the union is not obligated to vote on their offer. We may down the road, but our hope is that we can get into some discussion so we can actually address the need of our members. He noted the new offer did not meet all demands around retirement, wages, and other critical issues. On September 13th, about 32,000 IM workers walked off the production lines of commercial jet plants across Portland and Seattle. This was the union's first major strike since 2008. The union seeks to increase pay by 40% over 4 years. Multiple credit rating agencies recently warned that a prolonged strike could threaten Boeing's prized investment-grade credit rating and reduce it to junk status. Just kind of like the doors on their planes. The 2-week strike is set to pressure Boeing's massive supplier network as it reduces spending to preserve cash piles. This could be a troubling sign that executives at the struggling plane maker forecast the strike might last at least a month, if not longer. Strike, strike, strike. Strikety, strike, strike, strike. Yes, shut that motherfucker down. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over when people talk about, let's vote, let's get these third parties in there. No, you got to change the system. How you change the system? You shut that motherfucker down, right? You can't fix an engine while it's still running. You got to shut it down first, then you fix it. So, for most things, like some things you can keep the motor running, but that kind of goes against the thing I'm saying. I don't want that to happen. Finally, in our news segment, Cali is suing Exxon over decades of plastics deception in first-of-its-kind lawsuit. So it's by Edward Carver, Mr. Haircut. In a first-of-its-kind lawsuit, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, on Monday sued oil giant ExxonMobil for allegedly deceiving the public about the recyclability of plastics so as to continue increasing production. The 147-page lawsuit filed in San Francisco County Superior Court came following a years-long investigation that environmental groups were hoping would lead to legal action. They widely celebrated Bonta's move. This is the single most consequential lawsuit filed against the plastics industry for its persistent and continued lying about plastics recycling. Judith Enck, founder of the advocacy group Beyond Plastics and a former senior Environmental Protection Agency official, said in a statement, Attorney General Bonta is leading the way to corporate accountability and a cleaner and healthier world. This lawsuit will set an invaluable precedent for others to follow, she added. Richard Wiles, president of the Center for Climate Integrity, echoed Enck's take. Big oil and the plastic industry's lies are the beating heart of the plastic waste crisis, which makes California's groundbreaking lawsuit against ExxonMobil the most important legal action to date in the global fight against plastic pollution, Wiles said. Plastics are made from fossil fuels, and ExxonMobil, the largest U.S.-based oil and gas producer, makes polymers that are turned into single-use plastics. Virgin plastic production has skyrocketed globally in recent decades, even as research has shown the damaging environmental and health impacts it has across its life cycle, including those microplastics that are in everything. The petrochemical industry has long promoted recycling as a solution to plastics pollution. ExxonMobil, for example, placed a 12-page advertorial in Time in 1989 titled The Urgent Need to Recycle. Bonta's office said in a statement, ExxonMobil and other companies also help push the use of the chasing arrow symbol, which gives the often false impression that a product is recyclable when it's not, or unlikely to be in most areas. Plastics recycling comes with enormous technical and economic constraints that the industry has understood and hid for decades. A 68-page CCI report released in February laid out the evidence against the industry, including, for example, a 1986 trade group report stating that recycling cannot be considered a permanent solid waste solution to plastics as it merely prolongs the time until an item is disposed of. Estimates indicate that plastics recycling rates are far lower than the public realizes, at just 6% in the U.S. and 9% worldwide. A recent poll by CCI and Data for Progress found that U.S. voters on average thought the rate was 45%. If you multiply those numbers together, you get close to it. You get 54. The same poll found that most U.S. voters, when prompted with information about the industry's history, supported their state taking legal action for recycling deception, as California has now done. The lawsuit from Bonta, a Democrat who's held office since 2021, represents a new front in the legal battles against oil and gas companies over climate and environmental issues, according to the New York Times. Dozens of U.S. cities and states, including California, have already filed lawsuits against big oil companies for their role in the perpetuating climate breakdown, but this is the most significant plastics lawsuit, observers say. New York did sue PepsiCo last year for its role in polluting the Hudson River with plastics, and also dead bodies, too, because there's plenty of those in there. Wiles of CCI drew a parallel between the newly announced suit and the dozens of climate suits that have preceded it, saying they both target the same types of lies. From climate to plastics, Exxon's entire business model is based on lying to the public about the harms its products cause, he said. True, 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 and true. So that's a step. But then again, you know, it's one of those things you have to keep an eye on. They say that, you know, they're doing this stuff, but what comes out of it, we will have to see. You know, we have really no love lost here for politicians here on the show, but, you know, when they're getting lied about, particularly those people who are fighting for kind of the same things we are here, you know, we have to call it out. And of course, they're going after who else? Rashida Tlaib.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right, so Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib smeared for an anti-Semitic quote that never happened. Palestinian-American Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was targeted on Monday for allegedly claiming that Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel is going after pro-Palestinian protesters at the University of Michigan because she's Jewish. However, Tlaib never made such comments, which various news outlets and sources have since fact-checked and debunked. Tlaib is the only member of the U.S. Congress of Palestinian origin. Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, an organization which has said that pro-Palestinian activism equals anti-Semitism in their eyes, shared a post on the tweeters addressing Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, asking her to condemn the fabricated comments while doubling down that Tlaib had made an anti-Semitic statement about Attorney General Nessel. Nessel is currently pursuing charges against pro-Palestinian protesters at the University of Michigan based on the allegations that some had assaulted police officers and engaged in ethnic intimidation. Greenblatt wrote, "When your attorney general prosecutes people for violating the law, harassing Jews, and attacking police officers, it's in the interest of public safety. Public safety! When a congresswoman accuses the attorney general of prosecuting protesters simply because she's Jewish, it's bias," which he deleted later. Detroit Metro Times outlet, which was falsely quoted by the Jewish Insider in the first place about the Congresswoman's comments, also published a fact-check story confirming that Tlaib never made such comments. The author of the story also replied to CNN anchor and fuckface Jake Tapper and confirmed once again that Tlaib's comments were fabricated. So these retractions did not stop many from condemning the spread of false information on social media, such as journalist Mehdi Hassan, who criticized CNN for giving a platform to false claims. That's rich, seeing how you used to work for a platform that you worked for somebody that gave a platform to false claims on the regular, MSNBC. Ilhan Omar, the U.S. representative from Minnesota, wrote that the smear campaign against Tlaib is absolutely reprehensible. Ben Spielberg, author and co-founder of 34 Justice Group, criticized CNN for providing a platform for Nessel to continue smearing Congresswoman Tlaib. Many also reacted to Nessel's continuation of her incendiary claims, many of which are still up on the social media platform Tweeters, despite the retractions. So that, like, you know, whether you love her or hate her, these fuckers are going to find every excuse they can to try to make you, if you support people not getting genocided they're going to try and find a way to make you sound like an anti-Semite, which is kind of funny. I read this thing. I should have put this on here. But I read recently that like 80% of Israelis are not Semitic, that they're not, their ancestors didn't come from Israel. And like you flip it over and like about 80% of Palestinians are. So who's really anti-Semitic? You be the judge. Finally, TikTok. They love to ban people. So they're banning RT's Arabic and Spanish accounts. The video sharing platform TikTok has deleted 3 Arabic language accounts of RT without explanation. The measure comes as the Israel-Hezbollah conflict has spurred fears of a regional escalation. RT Arabic, RT Online, and RT Newsroom accounts vanished on Tuesday evening. Spanish language Actualidad RT account has also been blocked without explanation. They had survived last Saturday's purge of accounts belonging to RT International, Sputnik Afrique, Sputnik Africa, Sputnik International, Sputnik Brazil, Sputnik Mundo, Sputnik Indonesia, and Sputnik Serbia. Sputnik Cleveland was spared as well. TikTok has not yet commented on the latest developments. So yeah, TikTok, time's up for being fair and balanced, and let's ban some people. I put this as our kicker because, you know, people have been wondering about when Julian Assange was going to speak in public, and you know, he is going to be speaking in public soon, so that's the good news. But mostly it's because well, you'll hear in just a second. So he's going to speak publicly next week. This is according to Adam Dick from antiwar.com. In late June, Julian Assange returned to Australia a free man after years of suffering in harsh conditions in a British prison, with the threat of extradition to the United States hanging over him. Since then, the WikiLeaks founder, who the U.S. government sought to prosecute for exposing U.S. dirty secrets, including related to U.S. military actions, has not spoken publicly. That will change October 1st. WikiLeaks announced in a Tuesday press release that Assange will next Tuesday, October 1st, at the Palace of Europe in Strasbourg, France, give evidence before the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, PACE. That's a lot of words for just PACE. The press release further states, this comes following the release of the PACE inquiry report into Assange case, authored by Rapporteur Thorhildur Suna Avidata. The report focuses on the implications of his detention and its broader effects on human rights, in particular freedom of journalism. The report confirms that Assange qualifies as a political prisoner and calls on the UK conduct an independent review into whether he was exposed to inhuman or degrading treatment. So yes, so next Tuesday, Julian Assange will make a public statement. So those who have been wondering where he was, you know, I've never been in a British prison, so I can't possibly attest to what he went through, but I do agree that he needed time once he got out of there to, for lack of a better phrase, get his shit together. Right, he wasn't ready to make public statements yet. He was probably suffering, and probably still is, with the PTSD of the confinement and the solidarity, or the isolation, I should say, being in prison, and probably the harsh treatment that he received as well. So yeah, it'll be good to see him. Hopefully, we'll get to hear what he has to say. Other than that, I think that is it for today. Tonight, though, we've got plenty of fun with our pal Noli D. She's going to be with us 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to be talking about movies and music and all that good stuff that she's working on. We'll just check in to see how our pal is doing. So that's going to be tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. As we said earlier, Willie is threatening to have a show about 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. And of course, Around the World, D and Friends at 9 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out all those shows tonight. Should be fun. We will be back on this show on Friday morning, I believe so, if the calendar still works. I want to appreciate Bobby. Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? I think we've seen enough of the cockpit. Let's go. Airplane. Thank you, Bella. Appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that's watching on YouTube and Rockfin and Rumble. Love each and every one of you. If you can, if you want to become a Patreon member for like $1 a month, that's like $12 a year. You can do that. All the links in there. Or if you just want to contribute to the show in some way, there's CashApp and Venmo and all that stuff down below. Every little bit helps. We appreciate it. And also just like, share, and subscribe if you're new. And tell your friends about it. We do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Straight news, some commentary a little bit, but most, I would say 90% news. Trying to start, there's enough people in this space that have their opinion shows and they do like 3 or 4 stories. And that's all well and good if you like that kind of thing. But if you're just looking for straight news, that's what we're doing here. And on ExtraBulla Live, we try to talk to people who are very interesting and have interesting conversations and see what they're up to. So we trying around here. Thank you, Gene. Appreciate you. Have a great day, everybody. We will see you this evening on ExtraBulla Live, and we will see you here on Friday. Peace!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo! Damn good song, wasn't it, dog? You like that song? All right.
Soon.
We can see that again in the Middle East today. So I call again for restraint and de-escalation at the border between Lebanon and Israel. Again, all parties to pull back from the brink. I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages, the return of the sausages, the return of the sausages. And that's the message I will take to the UN General Assembly when I travel there later today.